10 years ago, a crack commando unit was sent to prison by a military court for a crime they didn't commit. These men promptly escaped from a maximum security stockade to the Los Angeles underground. Today, still wanted by the government, they survive as soldiers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the Nerd Pastors podcast and our guests. Welcome to the Nerd Pastors podcast. My name is Justin.
Dun, 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 dun,
Exactly. Today we're talking old TV shows. And, you know, this is a safe place for pastors to nerd out. But today's topic, this was back, we're talking about an era where you could just turn on the TV and you didn't have to worry about what your kids were going to see. You just knew you were going to have some family entertainment. I think we're going to mostly talk about 80s shows, but we can go back further if we want. I think once we get to the 90s, that's when we're like, okay, mommy and daddy are going to watch our shows. Kids are going to go watch Nickelodeon. But with me, as always, is a man who finds himself leaping from life to life, striving to put right what once went wrong, and hoping each time that his next leap will be the leap home. Seth Muse. Seth, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, man. I just love how you quickly glossed over an entire generation of latchkey kids and our plight and what happened to us. So
hey,
yeah.
I was a latchkey kid. Don't
I was too. I kind of was. Later in life, I became that way, and I was like, "Yay, I'm home alone," just like the movie. Now, if only some robbers could come in that I could nearly kill.
Yep. How are you, Seth? Isn't there laws?
Good,
isn't there laws now? You can't home alone criminals when they break in your house.
I don't know, man. Probably.
It's in your state.
It's a wild world. I'm in Texas. You're in Texas, so probably not.
That's true.
Probably okay.
Our next guest
is a castle state, so you know.
Our next guest, who's becoming quite a regular, is a man who will fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. He's a real American hero. Fights against Cobra Kai, the enemy, fighting to save the day. He never gives up. He's always there, fighting for freedom over land and air. Ricky Pope. Ricky, welcome to the show again.
Good to be here, my friend.
I originally had that written for Seth, but then I sang Seth's name and it didn't really work. And I was like, well, that works better for Ricky. So.
You know, I prefer it when people do sing my name. But
well,
Ricky, how are you today?
Cobra Kai.
I am doing fantastic, my friend.
Good to hear. Hey, the next guy I want to introduce, I'm just going to give him a simple introduction because you take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and what do you have? Doug Triplett. Welcome, Doug.
Hey, guys. Welcome back. I'm glad to be here again, and I love doing these. It really makes Friday a day to look forward to.
And I think it makes for a weekend that
I'm just excited.
Yeah, I think it makes for a weekend that folks really look forward to because they got something to listen to that's, you know, not Francis Chan or Andy Stanley. It's something that, you know, maybe they can listen to on church time, but not, you know, worry about it and not feel like they have to take notes, you know, and kind of nerd out with us. And we've got one more guest today. He's in his car, so he's audio only. He's a young loner on a crusade to champion the cause of the innocent, the helpless, the powerless in a world of criminals who operate above the law. He's in his own Knight Rider right now. Tom Pounder. Tom, welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody. I am wearing tube socks and my 80s headband with my wristbands as well. So, you know, they can collect all the sweat I have, you know, accumulating right now.
I can only imagine. And you're in kit, right? I didn't just make that up.
I am. I have my own little kit. I think I'm calling kit Siri right now, but yes, I'm driving with kit. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was originally going to do something about the intro about like you're driving to night court or something like that, but then I thought, yes. maybe not for Tom.
Such a great show.
It was a great show.
So we're talking old TV shows. And I know when I pitched the show, I was like 80s TV shows, but I mean, we could go even further. When I grew up in the 90s watching Nick at Night, I was watching a lot of 70s show, Laverne and Shirley, Happy Days, Wonder Years. They could have carried it. I was like, let's just go further back. Yeah, Chips. let's just go further back and just talk all TV shows. And I will remain mostly quiet this episode, one, because I was born at the end of the 80s. And so all I can talk about are reruns on Nick at Night, which I loved. I absolutely loved. I watched Wonder Years from beginning to end, Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, all those guys. And number two, I'm coming off of the flu. So
are you really?
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. I got the flu. Rona negative, but
I think that's what I got too, just this week. Also Rona negative. So.
Yeah. When you said you were going to do the 80s, my first thought was, were you there?
Nope, I was barely there.
I was there, Ricky. It was my childhood, and I, like you said at the beginning, Justin, you turn on the TV and there was just something good. It was such a good
I got
era
to catch
of
I got to catch the tail end of that. You know, in the 90s, we were going into, TGIF on ABC. I think it was ABC, right?
Yeah.
I think they jumped the shark when they had 3D night. Remember, you had to go to Blockbuster to get the 3D or no, was it you Blockbuster, or you got like a Burger King Happy Meal or something, and you got the 3D glasses. Oh yeah, that was great. That was the last good night of TGIF.
And they started having crossovers from characters in different shows.
That's right. Yeah.
Like Urkel would he in one episode, I remember like Family Matters, at the end of the episode he tested this jetpack and he flies out and they end the show and you're like, what happened to Urkel? And then Full House starts right after that and Urkel drops in. He
does. Yeah, that's right.
And he's in that episode of Full House, like in the same night. And I was like, that's kind of cool, but it's like at the same time you go, what's happening? That was before we knew how to interpret all that, but it was cool. It was a cool time for television. Really cool stuff.
So I got to watch all those shows in retrospect. But also my voice is just shot. Meetings all week are just, I'm exhausted. So but you guys, okay, so let me just toss a question out. Might be some controversialness. I'll start it with Ricky. Ricky, who's the boss?
Oh.
Was it Tony or Angela? Which one? Or was it Mona?
Tom had some thoughts on who's the boss. Maybe I should ask Tom. Tom, we were talking about it earlier. What did you tell me, bud?
Okay, so I had such the hots for Alyssa Milano. Like I would watch it just for Alyssa. She was, I mean, again, I looked it up just to make sure it wasn't weird. She's only 2 or 3 years older than I am, but growing up, I'm like, we're watching Who's the Boss, not for Tony Danza, but for Alyssa Milano.
Exactly.
You're not wrong.
It's not Hold Me Closer, Tony Danza. It was Hold Me Closer, Alyssa Milano. That's what it really was. That's what it was about. For sure.
So what let's talk about this in all seriousness. When I think older TV, I wouldn't even say old TV shows, right? It's older TV shows. You know, one art that we've really lost is the art of the TV show intro. I mean, first of all, there's no intro at all. I mean, even just, you know how long it took me to think of like these intros that I was going to give you guys? Like 5 seconds. Because like, I mean, who has great, first of all, Quantum Leap is like my favorite TV show. Did you hear they're bringing it back too? I hope they don't.
Oh, they are?
Yeah. That's going to be, I got my dad a Quantum Leap like mug. I got him a Quantum Leap mug that was like trying to fix 2020. It was really funny. But yeah, the TV show intro, there's just no good. First of all, they either just blow past it. It's just a title screen, or they just use which, I mean, some songs are licensed. I get that, but you know, the voiceovers, the action, the credits rolling over like characters talking and laughing and shooting each other, you know, or shooting the bad guys, not each other. It's a lost art form. Doug, what's the most memorable 80s intro in your head?
Has to be A-Team, because they changed it almost every week, swapping in and out new action scenes for each of the characters. As the season went on, you would get things that happened that season, but you'd also get things from other seasons, so you had kind of a continuity and you got character history as you watched the opening each week.
Yeah, that's such a classic opening too. In fact, in the early 80s, my family moved over to Germany for a few years, and my brothers and I, before we left, we took a tape recorder and recorded that opening, and we would play that every single day for months when we got there, just to relive the A-Team, because that was like one of our favorite shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just an iconic theme. As soon as you hear that boom, 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 right at the beginning, everyone amongst our age group knows exactly which show you're talking about. It's kind of like hearing the first 4 or 5 notes of M.A.S.H. You know what the song is.
I was going to say, when you said the first notes, I immediately thought of M.A.S.H.
Yeah.
I mean, or Knight Rider.
And you hear that growing. Right. M.A.S.H. was always like, when that theme song come on, it was like, you know what? This is the signal. It's time to go to bed.
Yeah. Dude, I had to beg my parents to let me stay up so I could watch the final episode of M.A.S.H. because it was going to run past my bedtime.
Yeah. It was a 9 o'clock hour, right?
I begged for a month and I got it.
Yeah, I did too.
Bawled like a baby at the end of it. So.
What about you, Ricky? Most memorable TV show intro?
Oh, I don't know if I don't know if I have. I mean, like Doug said, A-Team was kind of the brilliant one, but
it was the model.
Yeah, it was kind of the model. There were just so many good shows in the 80s, though.
Yeah.
And one of my personal favorite 80s shows, and I thought the music was great on the intro, was Night Court.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Just it had a great tune.
But that's it, though, to me, is that the show really comes down to how much of a banger that song is when you first start. You had so many shows. Like, think about all the if we start singing one right now, like making your way in the world today takes everything you got. Everybody's gonna know that song. That's Cheers. That's a great song. Or the Growing Pains intro, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or it's like all these had these songs that stick in your head so well, and you just want to sing along, and you want to kind of jam. You don't want to skip it. You never wanted to skip the intro.
Yeah, absolutely.
G.I. Joe.
And nowadays, if there even is one, you want to skip it.
Yeah, you kind of do. You're like, get to the show, man.
Yeah, I actually have a rule, which, by the way, okay, one thing at a time, Justin. I have a rule whenever I watch a TV show, and I do it with every TV show. On the first episode of the season, I watch the intro.
Me too.
And then on the last episode of the season, I watch the intro. There is only one modern TV show that I have watched the intro to every episode, and that's Peacemaker. That intro you can watch. You kind of watch it and you expect it to change, and then it doesn't, but then you're like, that's fine, I'll still watch it anyways.
That is a train wreck, man. That is a train wreck right there. You cannot avert your eyes.
Well, talking about the iconicness and of these different themes, we've missed one that the show was so bad and cheesy, it's lovable, but it's one of the ones where the theme song over the title actually was a chart-topping song, Greatest American Hero. That theme actually was a top 10, top 5 song.
Kind of a goofy show.
Yeah.
But
I thought you were going to say the Inspector Gadget theme song, but I mean,
that's another one.
Hanging it.
You gotta hit the little whistle.
Yeah. But the GI Joe. I mean, part of it too. Do you think the intros? I mean, did they ever come out why they did the intros? I mean, was it just a relic of radio days to give people time to tune in, let them know you're on the right station? You know, because okay, it's 8:30. My show's coming on. What channel is it on? You kind of scan it, and then you hear the intro. That okay, now I know I'm on the right station. Or maybe a friend tells me this show's coming on at 8:30. I'm flipping channels. That's the show. Is it like a call to action? Like, oh, I'm in the kitchen, the show's starting, I better get going, you know? Did the TV intro, because it had to serve a purpose, because we don't need to do it anymore.
Well, I think it's partially that, and they stated the reason why they dropped them was because that 2 minutes of the theme, they tossed that, and they could resequence when the commercials fall, and they could squeeze in an extra commercial segment by getting rid of those 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times
commercials used to be at top every 15 minutes, rotating around the clock. And now that you got show 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
Yeah. And if you've watched the documentary on Netflix, I think it's Netflix, the Toys That Made Us, they kind of get into a little bit of that when they're talking about like He-Man, Ninja Turtles, all those toys, that you realize that a lot of those cartoons that we're talking about, especially the animation side of this in the 80s, were to get around FCC rules on commercials on Saturday mornings for kids. So because you couldn't advertise specifically to kids for stuff. And so to do that, they create this whole show around a toy, just sell a toy, like G.I. Joe, He-Man, Ninja Turtles, Transformers, all that. And so, which is when you get interesting tidbits of information, like Autobots and Decepticons in Japan are actually two different toy lines. They just combine together and turn into a thing for selling in America. And that's why all the Decepticons are like flying stuff and all the Autobots are like car stuff. But anyway, it's like they had to get around that. And so that jingle is something that could sell. It could set it in your head and it set that up. I think that's a big part of that side. Now, when it comes to the other shows having the big long intro, I'm not sure what to think about that. Cause I mean, we did have some songs that we just kind of loved to sing. Just put you in the mood for the show.
And maybe it's Pavlov's dog. Like you hear that song, you're going to stay glued. And correct me if I'm blurring the lines between like modern TV and 80s TV. Did they or even 70s, did they have cold opens back then? It didn't just start with the theme, right? They still had cold opens, or was that more developed in the 90s?
I know that
showed up a little places in the 80s.
Yeah, Cheers definitely had cold opens, and they went to the theme song then.
Night Court did too.
Okay, yeah.
And on both of those, with Cheers especially, the cold open generally had absolutely nothing to do with the episode,
because again, it was
just an improv thing. They were like, "Yeah, that's cool this week."
Yeah, it really. And I would always thought cold open meant like it's a cold audience, you got to warm them up. It's not really necessary to the plot of the show, because not everyone's tuned in, right? Which is that's a vernacular we don't need to use anymore. You don't tune your cable box or Netflix subscription anymore, right? Or you don't dial in the radio.
You guys when don't go outside the trailer and turn the antenna to get better reception.
No, but we do still have the rabbit.
That's what I did when I was TV.
But when people were still tuning in, you had to fill that airtime. But you didn't want to make it something that was plot heavy that you didn't understand. So it was like it served double duty. One, it started the hour and it kind of warmed you up, like it's a comedy. Okay, it's time to laugh. Or it's a drama. Like, okay, I got to get kind of serious a little bit. And then you run the credits, or excuse me, the intro. And then I'm remembering after the intro, they went into the TV show. Nowadays, you go into an ad after the intro. But I don't remember that. I remember the intro goes right into more TV.
Well, and
a lot of times, I think,
like the opposite of not the throwaway opening, because it set up the premise of the episode, and then he said, "Oh boy," and then you went to the thing.
Yeah, got to get the "oh boy" in there.
If you missed that first couple of minutes of Quantum Leap, you were hurting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I actually heard an interesting thing about Cheers. I watched one of those little documentary things on Cheers the other day, and they said that Cheers was one of the first TV shows that ever built upon each other in an episodic, like in a serial type of way. Before Cheers, they were like one-offs. Every episode was a one-off. You didn't need to pay attention to the different ones, but Cheers started to build upon each other, and that was one of the first TV shows to do that.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, you really didn't get into real serial television until, because they were just one-offs, right? If you saw it, great. If not, you maybe catch a rerun. Eventually, it got
unless
to the point,
it was a drama.
Unless it was a drama.
Some of the drama shows had that, but the comedies didn't.
Yeah, and so it didn't really. I mean,
you have seasons.
Which, by the way, I try to explain to my daughter. Like, it used to be like you had to make we call it appointment viewing, but I the way I explained it to her, it's like you used to have to set a mental alarm. Like, gosh, I got to be in front of the TV, because if I don't watch this show, or if I miss a part, I don't have anything to talk to my friends about tomorrow, right? Or, you know, I can't be talking to coworkers about like, oh, you guys are talking about this. Let me just get my coffee and go. Like, she just doesn't understand that. And it's the most amazing thing ever.
They'll never understand the thing I did in the late 70s, early 80s. I would get the TV guide.
Yes.
I went through the
wait, Ricky, you mean the channel?
The
TV guide channel?
No. A paper document that you bought at the store. You go through the new Saturday morning lineup from the fall and figure out what shows you're going to watch on which channels. And you really, 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 really hope that two shows don't come on at the same time.
I remember.
On two different channels.
See, now, so Ricky, you were fancy. You had the TV guide. See, we had to get the local newspaper.
The newspaper.
That in the back. That's how we found movies at the movie theater. You have to call too for that kind of thing. But we got the newspaper to find out what Saturday morning cartoons we're going to watch. And all of that. So it's interesting. This era of television had such a family friendly bent, definite blocks of like family TV for you to sit down like on Fridays and Thursdays or whenever they did it. And those shows like taught moral lessons in the shows for kids and families to discuss together or learn together. And it was, you know, your Punky Brewsters and Full Houses and, you know, all that kind of stuff taught you how to be a good human in a lot of ways. And
depending on your time zone, like in Central Time Zone, 7 to 9 was going to be your family shows. And then you knew 9 o'clock, that's the adult drama.
That's 2020.
Yep.
With Barbara Walters, not the year.
You always
Saint Elsewhere, or you know, whatever else, the big thing was right then.
X-Files. X-Files came out.
You always saw those commercials of very special growing pains, or a very like that's how they would preface it.
That's code for like there's some little PG-13 type stuff happening in this episode.
Yes.
Well, and I think the show that did that best as a special episode kind of thing is the episode of the Michael J. Fox show where he's in the family.
Family
Ties.
Family Ties, yes. When he did, the whole episode was nothing but him doing the monologue when his friend committed suicide. That was an amazing episode.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
I don't remember.
I mean, it's not.
I thought you were going to go to the one where he was
and an overhead chair, an overhead light in a chair. You know.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
I'll tell you the other that show dealt with some serious stuff. I remember the one where what was the blonde sister on that show? Was it Tina? Was that her name? Whatever her name was. Anyway, they did a whole episode about her God, I don't know how to even say this delicately, but becoming a woman. And my parents turned it off. Like we're not gonna watch that one. I was like, what?
Well, you know, a lot
of
TV shows, more, I don't say a lot, but I mean, I remember several TV shows. Full House did one, where DJ had, I don't remember if it was, I don't think it was Becoming a Woman, but I think she had like a boyfriend that got serious, like close to the door serious. And I remember that was like one of the last shows we watched. And then a little bit later, Home Improvement actually had a sex episode.
Dude, Home Improvement was a great show.
Yeah, and that was 90s, right? But they had a sex episode, and that's when my dad was like, and my dad wasn't like overbearing, super religious. You know, he's Christian, but not super religious. But even he was like, it's enough of that, you know, like, like, you know, I mean, I was probably still prepubescent, but I understood what was going on. But yeah, it was like, hey, this isn't what I watched Home Improvement for, you know, like, you know, so the serious shows, I mean, they can be done well, but at the same time, it's like, it feels like the writers, and I think I see that most, this is totally not an old TV show, The Scrubs, I see the writers mature throughout the seasons, and they want to tackle heavier topics as part of the character development. And I think too, in the 70s and 80s with the shows we're talking about, like they want to get to that point. I think M.A.S.H is another good example with that, right? They want to get to that point where they're telling heavier stories, whether it's because they run out of comedic content or they feel they finally have an audience that they can now, for lack of a better word, preach to, or raise awareness to, you know, especially with the Family Ties episode. Is that a good thing, something we should strive for? Or is that something that, what do they say? Just stick to comedy kind of thing?
Well, let's insert another show and an episode into that. The Facts of Life episode where Tootie and her biker boyfriend have sex for the first time. And the lady that played Blair refused to be in the episode because she is a Christian. And that was handled quite well. I think they didn't get into a whole lot of, they didn't get explicit. You knew what was going on, but it was definitely a break from the rest of the series.
Yeah. I wonder though, because this is a great like faith and fandom kind of question here where, you know, when we were growing up, you already mentioned, you know, I mentioned the latchkey kid type thing, you know, parents were working, kids were being raised by TV, you know, there's kind of the 80s deal. You know, I wonder how much of that was, I feel like that was part of the reasoning in a lot of this TV was that they're including stuff. It's basically, it's almost not equivalent to, but it's in that same range of like sex ed. And, you know, teaching kids about safety. And, you know, you get the end of G.I. Joe and knowing's half the battle, all that, those public service announcements, the more you know, that kind of stuff that would happen on TV in all of these shows and outside and between them, that I wonder if it was just kind of like, I don't know. I just kind of wonder where that thinking came from. I think it was good. I think it was really good to have, but also we don't have that now. So
yeah, well, I think some of it is, you know, just storytelling, right? Like some of my favorite shows that are not even favorite shows, but the shows that are a breath of fresh air go back to that storytelling where there's a life lesson at the end. And you can see the characters develop. There's a certain style of storytelling. It's called circular storytelling, where it's in the whole thing comes to a circle. Dan Harmon's very popular or popularized it, where they take the best, right? They say the best writings come from real life experiences. And I think starting off, they say, what can we get the most laughs on? What can we get the most eyes on? What can we get the people talking about the most that's going to get us renewals? But eventually the writers have to say, you know, I have this life experience that I want to deal with. And they finally have that creative freedom when they know they've got 2 more seasons, or they know they've got a hit show and they can finally address this. You know, they can finally say, hey, there's a moral lesson at the end, but we're going to talk about something that's a little bit more taboo because this story needs to get out. Maybe, Seth, because mom and dad aren't talking about it. And, you know, I think maybe as we've become a more polarized culture now, we don't want to cross those thresholds because we know no matter what side you're on, you are going to get feedback because there is a loud minority on all sides. And so instead of that, let's just play it safe and just play it for laughs, or go heavy to one side to where you don't even have the other side watching your show, whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wonder too.
Oh, go ahead, Rick.
Go ahead.
Tom.
I was gonna say, well, I'm trying to think, like, you know, growing up, you know, my parents always watched I Love Lucy, Leave It to Beaver, Andy Griffith's Show, and you
ultra
had
wholesome.
a certain sort. Yes, ultra wholesome. And then I think in the evolution of the sitcom, I don't remember 70s very much. I was a little kid when I was in the 70s. But then in the 80s, I wonder if it's just a migration or a transformation of the sitcom that just says, hey, we got to talk about different issues because things aren't as wholesome as they were back in the 60s. You know, that you had that sexual revolution in the 70s and all that kind of stuff, Vietnam in the 70s. I wonder if that changed things to where people felt like we need to be talking about these issues more.
Well, and I think there was a lot of what you're saying there and it taking pressure off doing it in the sitcoms, because look at the 70s sitcoms that were huge, you know, with Taxi and On the Family. They tackled those, but in a brutal, in your face kind of way. Yeah. And of course, that also brings up the fact is how do they spin Tony's character out of the craziness of Taxi to Tony Danza? But you know, that's another thing. But
there's like Hill Street Blues kind of approach to, you know, a cop show. Got real gritty, and you know, they were trying to really be more in your face, which, you know, was the precursor to your NYPD Blue and, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, I feel like there was a desire out there for some help in creating conversation around these topics, because I don't know about your parents. I just felt like me and my parents and my friends' parents and everybody I knew always struggled to really talk about tough things together as a family, you know? I think we're all, you know, with the exception of maybe Justin, are kind of from that same generation a little bit, you know, we're all kind of 40s ish, but you grow up and you kind of don't have these really delicate conversations, frankly. And, you know, so it forces the issue on some stuff. So I feel like that was part of it. But it also seems like now if they force the issue, it's more just to open a conversation. Whereas these shows weighed in on an opinion of it. You know, they're telling you what you should think about this issue a little bit.
I would disagree. I think they're still trying to tell us what to think.
Well, maybe so. Maybe it's just saying something different than it used to.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely saying something
maybe
different.
It's just at the different perspective now. Who knows? But maybe you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I was saying. The polarizing culture. I mean, even looking at just think about TV back then. You had a handful of channels, even fewer local broadcast networks that were covering news, doing news. Everyone was listening to Tom Brokaw or whoever else was on the news. And so everyone was getting their news and information from the same sources, right? You had your local newspaper, your local news, and eventually the national news coverage, right? Because that national news, CNN and all that started in the 80s, right? So late 80s. So, you know, everyone was getting the same information. And when everyone has the same information, they're thinking the same, right? So, you know, while they were maybe talking about topics that weren't talked about a lot, everyone was still pretty much on the same page because everyone was working off of the same information. Now everyone has their own information. And so, you know, it's a matter of just who can scream the loudest and get that opinion down other people's throats the hardest, regardless of what side you're on. So, yeah, I think the opinions are still out there being presented as fact, or you know, we could talk in circles all day about what's right and wrong.
But it's on demand now, like you said.
Yeah, and now
find what you want to see.
Yeah, and so now
you had a tunnel.
Now we've got like culturally right shows. That, you know, studios that are coming out with their own right-leaning productions, for good or for bad. And so, you know, it's just a matter of I think that opinion has always been there. It's just now they're so much more divided and so much more easily accessible. There's still things that I just happen to stumble upon that I see on TikTok, and I'm like, what is this? And it opens up a whole niche of TV shows that I had no idea existed and wish I didn't know existed. Right.
One of my favorite TikToks recently is like this guy's just like reviewing like Christian movies.
Please tell me. Please. Okay, go ahead, Ken. I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt.
Oh my gosh. I have seen some stinkers, and it has been, I can't even describe to you. One of them is like a guy is trying to, he's trying to proselytize everybody because he's pretty sure that the, I don't know. I forget what the whole plot is, but it starts off, it just opens up with this black screen and it says communism is everywhere. And then it goes into like this, and I was like, we are in for a ride from frame one, man.
Still a better intro than Rise of Skywalker. Just gonna say that. Maybe. Still a better. Somehow the Emperor is alive.
Evil is everywhere. It's like that's the same line. So funny. But
I thought you were gonna bring up Velocipaster.
Oh, that I haven't seen it yet, and I keep seeing clips from it. It's good. If you've seen Kung Fury,
if we somehow figure out a Nerdpaster's watch party on Facebook or Discord, that's going to be the first movie we watch.
Oh my gosh. The things I've seen from Velocipaster, if you're not familiar, Velocipaster is about a pastor who witnesses the tragic death of his parents and somehow gains the power to turn himself into an actual velociraptor. And the special effects,
the lamest looking velociraptor in the world,
spectacular 7th grade film studio. So it is such a sight.
It's on Amazon Prime, I hear,
and it's on Amazon Prime, and it's all done intentionally as a tongue-in-cheek, so it's awesome.
Oh goodness.
Birdemic looks like a better production than Velocipaster.
Birdemic.
If you've never seen Birdemic, was like the first one of that genre where it's the story is interesting. It was literally like a rich I can't remember international guy. He was rich, and his life dream was to be a movie director, and so he just threw money at this project. He wrote the script himself, hired his friends or something like that. Like he was rich, but not like actual Hollywood movie budget rich. And it's about birds that start attacking people, and it's a birdemic. But it's one of those where like it looks like it was edited by your church intern who is
who just learned how to use
who just downloaded Final Cut because like the forest is on fire with obvious CG flames, but the fire doesn't go to the end of the frames, so like the fire just disappears and then the scene cuts. That's one of the first of the terrible movie genres that takes itself too serious.
That's in the Sharknado kind of genre.
Don't you talk about Sharknado that way, Seth.
Well, I will say that back to the 80s kind of TV, one of the things we did see, I don't know if you've watched the new it's on HBO, there's a documentary about the creation of Sesame Street.
No, I haven't seen it.
And Sesame Street is one of those shows that kind of breaks out and creates its own genre of show that is just dearly loved today still in all of its glory, but educational and entertaining TV for kids.
Back when kids shows, was there any, I guess Transformers, that wasn't, at least G.I. Joe had a morale at the end, right?
Yeah, I mean, most cartoons were just there to sell.
But I was about to say, was there any kids shows that didn't, like, I know me and my wife, we intentionally, we certainly have dropped the ball lately, but when our daughter started watching TV, we intentionally made sure it was only shows that had some modicum of education. Now she watches LOL shows and who the heck else knows, but
a lot of those 80s cartoons had some redeeming moral thing they were trying to attempt to teach, kind of poorly in a super campy way.
At least Cobra Commander never died. Like, they shot the heck out of him, but he never died.
So this is actually where I was going to go. So many of those shows everybody escapes, everybody falls, all the bad guys parachute to safety.
Leonardo has sharp swords and then he kicks you.
Yeah. But there was one that changed it for me. I don't know if any of you ever watched Robotech. It came out in 85.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first cartoon I remember seeing where I know people died.
Yeah.
I saw them die and they killed off main characters.
Oh yeah.
In the show and talked about it.
Yeah. Anime. And we weren't ready for anime.
No.
Like Saturday morning.
I remember the episode so clearly, the episode where Rick Hunter, the commander, has to write a letter. He's struggling to write a letter to the parents of Ben Dixon, who had just died in combat.
Wow.
And it's just, it was a game changer for me, because I was like, everything else was, G.I. Joe, and it was, Voltron, and it was, whatever else, all the bad guys always came right back, and all the good guys always came right back. And this was like, oh, they're not coming back ever.
And we thought we were safe in Transformers until the movie.
Yep.
And they literally killed all your heroes off. And as Optimus Prime turns his head and turns gray, which was traumatizing, and dies on screen, you realize I'm not a kid anymore. I have lost a little piece of innocence when watching some of these cartoons. Yeah, some of them, the Japanese anime, which is really what Transformers kind of was, as well.
Yep.
We weren't ready for that.
I was angry. I was angry when Optimus Prime died.
Oh man,
and then they replaced him with Rodimus Prime. What a loser that guy was.
Yeah, it was like the only Transformer. He's like, he's cool as Hot Rod, and then he transforms into Rodimus. You're like, oh, that was worse. You're dumb now.
That's when the youth pastor has to step in as interim pastor after the pastor leaves. Like,
I just want to know. I want to know. I want to see the boardroom meeting that said that caused all this, because what started it was some guy in a suit said, we need a whole bunch of new toys to sell.
Exactly.
We'll tell you what, let's kill everybody off and make all new ones, and everybody will have to buy new toys.
That is exactly it.
And then somebody went, oh, well, if we're going to do it, we better do it well.
Yeah. So they brought in the movie. They do a big theatrical release. They put some marketing money behind it. They bring in Leonard Nimoy and Orson Welles and Judd Nelson to be voices in these things. You're like, whoa, this is huge. And now you're seeing all these cool new Transformers in the preview. And oh, by the way, Ironhide is getting a face full of blast from Megatron. He's going to die horribly. All your best friends are going to die, and their eyes are going to turn red and pop out of their face, and you're going to be traumatized with that. And then you're going to watch Optimus Prime and Megatron die, but not really Megatron. So justice is there, for you as a kid. So it's just this whole big kick in the crotch if you loved Transformers. And honestly, it's like that's when I stopped watching the show. I stopped watching the new one. I didn't want to watch any of these.
I can just picture Seth, like he's got his Optimus Prime and like his toys, and he's like clutching to his chest, and he's just like,
bro, it was literally that. I was literally going, what happened to my hero? He's gone. I can't believe it. I was so mad, and I knew it was just because they wanted me to buy new toys. I just knew it.
You were too smart for their own good.
I think the cartoon that was traumatizing for me was watching Akira for the first time in the late 80s.
No, you
was
didn't.
that
the Japanese
was
version.
that the 80s?
Yeah, late 80s.
That was rough.
Yeah,
that was tough. Yeah.
That's a classic.
Oh yeah, I guess
I was
1988.
I was gonna bring up the Ewoks animated TV show, but I thought that was too traumatic. But I'm glad Doug thought of something worse.
Well, the other thing I think of when I think of the 80s TV shows, like the live action, I went through a list before we started. I went through a list of a bunch of 80s shows. I didn't realize how many popular, famous, high-profile, box office driving people started. Like, you didn't know who they were before the 80s TV show they were in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm distracted by Seth's transforming desk over here. He sat down. He looks like a little kid at the big kids table, and then the camera just starts.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm dying over here. Oh, yeah, I muted it so you wouldn't hear it go.
Sorry, I got distracted.
But yeah, like Ricky said, it's interesting seeing how where all these different people started. Like Matthew McConaughey, his first role on screen, if you want to call it a role, was a background character in a Trisha Yearwood video.
No way.
Wow.
Yep.
Random. Trisha.
Well, and I was thinking, like Brent Spiner, we all think of him from Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah.
He started his joyous career on Night Court as the backward farmer guy.
That's right.
He and his wife
he
would show up in New York and he'd go, "Your Honor."
Yeah, he was that. He was such an awkward character.
He was.
I remember. Yeah, that just unlocked some memories for me. I forgot about that. Because that's one of those shows
coming back too, right?
No,
that sounds familiar.
That's cool.
It's going to be on Peacock, and the judge is going to be Harry's daughter.
Huh.
Oh,
Harry's daughter?
But the prosecutor will be back playing himself.
Oh, cool. John.
Nice.
No, what was his name?
John Arquette.
Night Court, refresh my memory. That was, they ended on a cliffhanger and they didn't renew, or did it get canceled? I remember hearing people were complaining like it didn't have a good.
Yeah, it ended on a cliffhanger or something. I can't remember
It fizzled out and it didn't have a real clear. Ending.
Yeah.
I kind of fizzled off too. I think that's how people just kind of dropped it. I think they changed the time or something and it kind of ruined it. Because that was back in the day when you actually showed, when your show actually aired, really did affect.
Not only when it aired, what it aired after.
Yeah, and
yes,
right.
Yeah, like you wanted to go after you wanted to go after Saved by the Bell or anything like that. That was a terrible example, but
the lead-in audience. It was the lead-in audience.
The lead-in,
right. Yeah. Right. And that's when I started doing those cold opens, is so that as soon as that show you were watching was over, it starts the next one, so you're already captured in, so that you could jump in.
And not only that really what time slot you had to go against, right? Like you didn't want to be against M.A.S.H's time slot. You didn't want to be on a different channel for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Or Monday Night Football.
Like on Thursdays, if you wanted to be, football, if you were a new show, if you got blessed between being stuck at 8:30 between Friends and Cheers.
Yeah.
Or it was, NBC owned Thursday night, so ABC didn't try.
Yep.
So ABC chose a different night to put their best shows out.
Yeah. I was just thinking that TGIF.
Oh yeah, we absolutely won because of it.
NBC, Must-See TV right? was what were the other ones? I don't even know. That's the only two I know.
TGIF, Must-See TV. What else did you say?
I know in the 90s, maybe early aughts, CBS owned drama on Thursday nights, right?
There was it Friday night, like a Disney movie slot on Friday nights or something like that, where it was like
NBC used to do it on Sunday evenings, starting at 7, 8 o'clock.
It was Sunday night. Yeah, because it was like we always made the decision
before Disney owned ABC. So
we always had to make a decision. We were like, are we going to go to night church? Or are we going to stay home and watch the Disney movie that comes on at church time?
Well, hey,
popcorn and, you know,
if you made it, okay, if you were primo, I'm talking at middle class at least, and you had HBO, you would ask yourself, what's the HBO movie of the night this week, right? Every Saturday night, that was the new movie night, and be like, what's the movie this Saturday night? And that's what you knew if you were going to go out on Saturday night or not. And or for me, it's whether I either had to go to a friend's house or I had to stay in my room.
And having those like those movie times was really great because they'd edit them for TV, so you could watch them with your kids, and they wouldn't see the blatant sex scenes or all the bad words in it. You know, they'd edit that stuff out, so you could. So like I watched Beverly Hills Cop all the time and thought that was just the greatest movie. And I remember going when I was in college, renting it or something and watching it going, I don't remember all of this in here. You know, like it's really not that clean. Back to the Future, the same way, you know, some scenes of Back to the Future. And I just remember watching them on TV and RoboCop. I watched RoboCop on TV.
RoboCop on TNT. Yeah.
And man, that was different when you rent the actual uncut movie.
There's a really funny joke in Community. I love this joke. There's a Christian lady and she's like, oh, I love the movie Pulp Fiction. And they're like, you've seen Pulp Fiction? And she goes, yeah, I saw it on an airplane. It's a nice 7-minute movie about friends who like dancing and eating hamburgers. Nice.
Yeah, you've seen it on VidAngel, be honest. That's
what about commercials? Any memorable commercials? Anything that you were just like, oh, like for me, the Mr. Owl, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? Well, let's see, a 1, a 2, a 3.
There's times when I count stuff off and I still do that voice, and my kids look at me like I'm nuts because they have no idea what that's from, and I go, oh yeah, that's right, I'm way older than you are. 1, 2, 3. And they're like, what is that? That's dumb. Don't do that, Dad. You're stupid. And then I get grounded.
Did science ever figure it out? Did they ever figure out how many licks did it take? Someone called Dr. Fauci. I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I remember the McDonald's commercials with the embarrassing moments. Remember those?
Oh, I don't remember those.
And they like they're hanging out at McDonald's, like teenagers hanging out at McDonald's, and this guy's sitting with this girl, and this other guy walks up and goes, oh, hey, is that the girl you like? Embarrassing moments. And they just do a couple of scenes like that. Like, hey, come get embarrassed at McDonald's. I don't know. It was a really weird commercial, but I just remember that.
A possible church commercial. You know, have you ever decided to run an ad? Embarrassing moments at church. Oh, man.
I want to say I probably spoofed that at some point in my youth ministry career. Made a video or something like that.
You can't be in youth ministry without knowing how to spoof a TV show, movie, or commercial.
No, I mean, you got to be a rip-off artist.
Stuff, yeah. Is there any good from the pulpit, like illustrations or illusions that you like to refer back to? One of my pastors, when he would make references to like Charles in Charge or Knight Rider, like people would remember those sermons. He would reference old TV a lot. I Love Lucy. He loved. In fact, I remember he had the chocolate conveyor belt. I remember making a slide. I had to go find a screenshot of that I Love Lucy commercial, and I got her like with a mouthful of chocolate and like stuffing the chocolate in her bra. And he's like, maybe not that one. You know, I had to go find a different screenshot. But I remember when he would use those references, man, people would get it. I even had to tell him, I was like, can you pull something like from the 90s or above for the younger folk? But I
gotta say though, I think that 80s and 90s TV together are that's probably when pastors started really pulling from, you know, examples like that a little bit more. I know that's when I grew up in church. So I kind of always thought it was that way, but you know, I know that when I pulled illustrations, that's when I was pulling from a lot of times with my
I guess started. 70s pastors weren't really you know, pulling from Bewitched or I Dream of Jeannie.
Well, they didn't really have youth pastors.
Well, I mean, even senior
like
pastors, that's fine too. Yeah.
But still, yeah, I feel like it was this era of television, you know, that because like we said earlier, there was a lot of moral teaching that you could take and line up with scripture and say, here's an example of what this passage is probably talking about. And and there's like you said, people remember that stuff because they've already been impacted by that show. But if you haven't seen that show, you have no idea what they're talking about, but you want to see the show. It doesn't make you go, I want to go read my Bible. So it doesn't have quite the effect that we really want. But I know I used a lot of that too when I teach.
And something he said when I asked, you know, hey, can you pull something newer? You know, he brought up a good point. He's like, I don't want to reference something that I don't want to ever have to say, now let's watch this clip, but don't watch the show. You know, it's a bad show. Let's just watch the clip. And it's like, oh man, like, you know, I mean, that's a good point. Y'all watch the Goldbergs?
I do.
A good show.
It's funny tidbit of information about me. You've mentioned two things today that are really interesting. Is that in my ministry along the way, when I was at one particular church here in DFW, it was a large church.
Don't say which one, because you know there's only one.
I won't. But the girl that plays, her name's Haley Arantia. She's on that show.
Oh yeah,
she plays the sister. She was in my youth group. She was one of my kids.
Oh really? Wow.
Yeah. So I was really happy to see her.
Hollywood got her.
Yeah, I was really happy to see her succeed. You mentioned Blair from Facts of Life. Her kids were in our youth group too. And they played in our band. And
Youth pastor to the stars.
They're incredibly gifted musicians, all three of them. They're awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're like literally a family band. Their oldest girl plays drums. The boy plays guitar really well, and their middle sister plays bass. And they're awesome. They're all really great. So that's interesting. You mentioned that.
Yeah, I love the Goldbergs. Of course, it means something completely different. If like my dad, like I'll laugh at something, and my dad, God bless him, you know, kind of what we youngsters would call gatekeeping. He'd be like, "Oh, you don't even know what you're laughing about." Like, then he goes in this whole, like, he spends the rest of the episode like, "Thank goodness we can pause now, so you can tell me the 20-minute backstory of this 20-second joke." You know, like, but yeah, the brilliance of that one too. The thing that got me hooked was, you know, at the end of the episode, you get to actually watch the real film that inspired that episode, and like that's what hooked me. Like that creativeness was really cool, and yeah, it's got good stories and it's got morals at the end. I think those are really good.
It's a crazy show. A lot of yelling, but funny.
Yes
And very nostalgic.
My favorite episode is the Columbia Records episode.
Oh, yes. I can get all these tapes for $1 cent, for 1 penny. Columbia House is going to send me 10 different cassette tapes. They're like, it's a scam, dude. It's a scam.
And what's funny is when I watched that, I was actually a Disney Movie Club. I actually still am a Disney Movie Club subscriber, which is basically Columbia Records model with Disney. You sign up, you get 7 DVDs for $1, but you have to stay subscribed and order DVDs. Now it's not as bad. You just have to order 4 DVDs within 2 years, or otherwise you owe them like $150 on the contract or something like that. But it's like, I'll just buy the Marvel movies. And then it ended up being like, it's actually a pretty good deal, like a Blu-ray for $20 or whatever it is. And so it's like, all right, just buy Marvel movies. And in fact, this is totally off topic. The most controversial decision I have ever had to make. Do I want to buy the Eternals Blu-ray?
Hey.
And as you can see, it's still shrink wrapped and everything. I haven't opened it, not even for the download. And it's just like, it's literally just to fill the DVD shelf. I have no intention of watching this, even because I love watching special features. And I'm like, I just have no interest in the Eternals, but the collector in me had to order it. So I ordered it.
Well, I have a question for everybody. Who shot JR?
Wasn't it a dream? No,
was all a dream.
Do you know this show? Do you know the show I refer to?
Yes.
The one that was filmed
That was
literally 20
that
minutes
was
from
Saturday
where I live.
night. When I was growing up, Saturday night was no, that was on Friday, but Saturday night you watched Yellow Rose of Texas, which was kind of a spinoff, and
Dallas was amazing. I didn't get to watch it. My parents loved it, but it was right. It was, I forget what night that was, but there was this sudden block of these drama shows. It was basically like high-end soap opera, when you got like Knots Landing, Falcon Crest, Dallas Dynasty, you know, and these are like
the nighttime soap operas.
Yes, and I know my parents were just into it, and I don't know if your parents were, or you guys watched them or anything, but Dallas was actually filmed over here in Plano. And you can go there today. Like 2 years ago, my wife and I and our family, we went over and toured the Ewing Ranch, you know, the whole thing that they filmed it on, and it was, I guess, fun. You know, I didn't really know the show.
But have you played Dallas the board game?
There is a board game. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting merch around Dallas. It's a weird cultish following, but Dallas was one of those shows where it left that cliffhanger. J.R. Ewing, the main guy, bad guy, gets shot.
And Seth, they got him. They got him because he was about to give away who shot JR, and they got him. He's
that is hysterical.
Anything else that we want to nerd out about older or 80s TV shows before we get into what we're nerding out about now?
Well, I think one thing we should talk about is just how popular these shows have stayed the whole time, and how so many new things are really not new, but recycled 80s shows.
Okay. We haven't had a new Three's Company or Golden Girls, have we? I mean, are you just saying the ideas?
Well, it's just like, Night Court's coming back, and all these other shows coming back. Yeah. You know,
Voltron has been remade. He-Man's been remade.
He-Man's coming back along with She-Ra. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just. I know
I'll tell you,
new
Doug,
ideas are
what it is.
slim in Hollywood, but.
Well, okay, so part of it, Doug, especially if you focus on the cartoons, this is my take. It has more to do with the people who watch these shows now have kids that are watching shows and buying toys for them.
Right.
And their parents are now nostalgic to buy toys for their kids that they had owned when they were kids.
And I guess also, the kids that were watching those are now the executives of those companies, and are like,
oh, absolutely,
I'm going to make my own Chuck cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I watched Thundercats. I want to remake it.
Yeah.
Well, is that better than like I'm going to make it a verb, or like Charlie's Angels? They remade it as a movie, or two movies. Right. Dukes of Hazzard they remade as a movie. Is it better that they just make an homage movie, which is essentially what it is, or try to reboot the whole franchise and make it a TV show like they did with MacGyver? Right, MacGyver's a pretty popular CBS show.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good too, and it's just, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of these reboots, even when they do the homages, they're bad. And we fully understand our 80s shows. A lot of that was real cheesy. I mean, Dukes of Hazzard, cars that they had like 4,000 General Lee cars because they broke 2 or 3 an episode, but it was still, even with it being that cheesy, the movie is really bad.
I assume you're talking about Dukes of Hazzard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think the remake thing has been, I don't know. It's been as happening for as long as media has been happening.
Yeah.
That's
true.
you do Point Break, and then you do Point Break with cars,
Right?
And I can't even think of, like, The Equalizer is back, but now she's a black woman,
Right.
and
Wonder Years, same thing.
Yeah,
that show's great,
for like shows that my kids have been watching recently. There was Boy Meets World, and now they made a girl version where Topanga and what's his face got married and have a kid, and it's a girl, so now it's about her.
Yeah, Fuller House.
And then there's Fuller House, and there are all these.
How I Met Your Father.
They've been How I Met Your Mother. Yeah, exactly. There's been things like this forever, and because I go back and I look at sometimes I go back and look at old 80s movies and find out they were actually remakes of something that happened in the 60s. I just didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And He-Man's the most recent one. I don't know if you've watched the new He-Man, but it, obviously a remake of He-Man.
Yep. He-Man, also there was a Voltron recently remake, and
yeah.
Okay, but speaking of movie remakes, Transformers. Come on.
Well, yeah.
Michael Bay knocked it out of the park. Come on, richest director in Hollywood.
The first one was great fun.
Yeah, the second one was garbage.
It just went down.
Yeah. Hey, Transformers Prime though is the animation is pretty great. I think it has a really cool arc and ending. I really liked that. And the new one, since we're on Transformers, the new one they've done for Netflix, that's really cool.
I am so ready for my boy to grow up, and so we can watch all these things. I'm just so excited.
Yeah.
I was telling someone, we just had a boy, if no one knows watching this, which why would you know? Well, I announced it on the last
I
podcast.
knew. I mean,
the last episode I announced it. There are quite a few people that listen to this that are not in our Facebook group, or I don't know.
That's true.
There's more people that watch this than are in our Facebook group. So I don't know where these people are or why you're not at the facebook.com/group/nerdpastors, or just go to nerdpastors.com, join the community, right? This is literally a fun side project to give me and Seth an excuse to watch TV and not feel bad about it. But my son, for the first time, wore something that wasn't like the normal cheesy newborn clothes. Like, he's finally in 3-month clothes, and he wore a Spider-Man onesie. And I just, when I put that on him, I was like, yes, like I have a son now. And like I put him in it every time I change him, and my wife is like, you got to put him in something else. I'm like, no, he wears this or his Star Wars onesie. That's one of those two things.
You don't need anything else. You're good.
I've got a trivia question for you, Justin.
All right, one trivia question.
Since it is Spider-Man, what was the name of the first live action show that Spider-Man was in?
What was the name of it? I know it was, I believe it was late 70s, wasn't it?
Yes.
But I don't know the name.
The
Electric Company.
Yep.
Oh.
Really?
It was before the really cheesy TV show.
I was thinking of the cheesy TV show, but he was on Electric Company first.
Before that, it was on PBS.
Was it introduced with the two
about
silhouette faces? Spider-Man, like that.
Well, about once a week they'd have about a 5-minute clip of him doing something in a really bad costume.
Yeah. I didn't know that. That's awesome. Hey, before we take off here, what are we nerding out about right now? Seth, what are you nerding out about this week?
The last couple weeks. Well, same as I've been. I'm still on the binge of My Hero Academia. I'm trying to watch all of that and catch up so I can talk about it with my son. And that's really what I'm doing.
So you're having to catch up to where your son is?
Yeah.
How does that feel? Because normally it's our kids trying to catch up to what we've already seen. Is it?
Well, I feel like it's kind of the opposite, because I feel like this is his world that I'm in more than, like, say, hey, you need to watch this show from when I was a kid, him catching up on that. But, he's, you try to meet your kids where they are. You want to be involved in their world. He loves My Hero, and his other one is Demon Slayer. which I haven't. I've watched a little bit of that, about the first season.
I've only heard one thing about that show, and it's not appropriate. But
yeah, it's a. I'm not as excited about that one, but I'm gonna try to get into it and try to watch it.
That's good.
And it's got some interesting, because I love anime. I like it too. So
have you watched Yu Yu Hakusho with him?
What is it?
Bless you.
Yu Yu Hakusho Ghost Detective.
No, I don't.
That's a really good one. Yeah.
Okay, I'll check that out. He finds stuff and he likes, and he reads the manga, and he really loves Haiku, which is about volleyball team. He loves that one.
I have a feeling I might start reading more manga. I told y'all I got an annual subscription to Marvel Unlimited. I've had it for 2 years now. Yeah. I stopped reading to focus on the family and business in 2016. Yeah. I got Marvel Unlimited to catch up where I left off.
Yeah.
And man, starting around early 2018, Marvel just takes a dip, and like it's a chore to try to read some of these comics. Like even as they killed Tony Stark off, they're kind of bringing them back.
Well, they're always going to bring them back.
It's still kind of like, I don't like some of the stuff they're coming out in 2018. I'm like, I got 2 more years of this, and maybe it gets. So I'm like, I hear manga is really good right now. There's a couple of alternative universes that are starting to be written. A lot of artists that have quit their jobs, want to go the Kickstarter route. So I'm like, I might finally stop maining. Or what do you call it? You say like, what's your daily driver? Like
mainstreaming.
Marvel may not be my main line anymore. I don't know. We'll see. It's just, you've always got the old stuff. It's important. You've always got the old stuff. But as far as like modern stuff, what are you reading right now that's coming out now?
And see, I sample from things that I just like. So if I find some Marvel stuff I like, I read that. I'll find some manga I like, I read that.
And I've tried to expand, because I normally just read. I really just read Deadpool, Iron Man. Some of the other Avengers and stuff, and I never really touched X-Men, never really touched any other IPs. Spider-Man, never really read Spider-Man comics.
X-Men's what I read most.
And even I even spread out into that stuff, and it's like, unless you just go back before early, I would say a lot of really good stuff up until about 2016. I think what was supposed to happen, this is way off topic, I think what was supposed to happen with all new, they did all Marvel Now in 2012. It was a soft reboot, and then they led up to Secret Wars in 2015, I think, and then they went to all new, all different Marvel. I think that was supposed to be a hard reboot. Like I think they were supposed to scrap everything and just go hardcore, brand new. Like I think New 52 did that, right? It was a hardcore, brand new reboot. Mm-hmm. And I think they chickened out at the very end. And so instead of taking all their ideas that were supposed to be like, this is all new, all different, we're starting from scratch, they took all those ideas and tried to shove them into these historical characters, and it's just not working. And it's just, it shows, man. It shows. It's such a drag. So anyways, all that to say, hey, I might be hitting you up to figure out what kind of manga I should be reading, because I don't know that world at all. It intimidates me.
It's kind of new to me, but I know
stay out of that section in the comic book shop, because I know someone's going to walk to me and I'm just gonna pee my pants. I don't know anything about that.
It's hard to tell what you're getting into, and so I'm new to it as well. But I know there's guys.
And I like color. My stereotype of manga, a lot of it isn't colored. Is my
no, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not. It's all ink, and it is hard to get used to, because I'm the same way.
Ricky, what are you nerding out about
this week? Moon Knight.
Yes.
I'm reading all about it.
I forgot to start a new episode that dropped. Discord. It's good. It was. I was very surprised. My review. If it was anyone than Oscar Isaac, I don't think I'd like it as much. Oscar Isaac nailed it. They opened up the appropriate boxes. Some people don't like the whole mystery box. What's his name? J.J. Abrams. But I think they opened up the appropriate number of boxes. We got to see the suit. That's a minor spoiler, I guess, at the very end. I loved it.
But only for like great. 20 seconds. So
I thought it was great. It was great.
And it's nothing you haven't seen in previews already yet.
Yeah, it's true.
Except for it morphing. So
I thought it was great. I need to do a Discord if you're not in our Nerdpasters Discord, somehow figure out how to get in there. I only know how to send invites to the Facebook groups. I don't know how to make a perma link for the website. I just finished Resident Alien season 2. Not as good as season 1, but a good show. I enjoyed it. Season 2 gets a little preachy, but it was still good. And that's really all I've done, and Moon Knight. So despite being sick, all I've been watching while I'm sick is 30 Rock. Just binging 30 Rock. I think I've watched 2 seasons in 3 days. Just mindless. If I fall asleep, I don't care. Doug, what are you nerding out about this week?
Well, like Ricky, Moon Knight was just phenomenal, and I didn't know how far into the split personalities they were really going to dig, and they've done it so well, because as the comic version, all these different personalities started coming into the comics and stuff. We're just tipping the iceberg of what I think they've got planned for the craziness that is Moon Knight, and it's going to be great. But I'm also looking forward to Doctor Strange a whole lot in about a month.
Yeah, that's coming up. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Appreciate all of you here. Tom had to duck out early. Let me just end it. I actually thought about it, and I would encourage you, have yourself, maybe you can build yourself a little Cheers kind of church. No, not with alcohol, but a kind of church where if you're making your way in the world today, it takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came?
Amen.
Wouldn't it be nice to have a church like that? You know,
you want to be where you can see that troubles are all the same. And you want to go where everybody knows your name.
Cheers.